Join me on a journey back through my first career win. So going back to 2007, as I start to feel old, thinking about the 20th year of my career now in 2025. But 2007, this is Corey, the rookie SEO analyst in a digital agency. I had the fortune of being sent out to Los Angeles for some of the best industry training that was available to shift my career in the first few years from working in a digital agency, learning some HTML before everything was open source and WordPress and everything else, and I had the chance to leverage some of the learnings I had as a project manager to move that into SEO. I get my first client, I'm back in the office, I'm 3 or 4 months into our campaign, and I'm super excited for this first meeting with this client. He's a local criminal defense attorney. We'll call him Bernie the attorney. And as we worked together, I was looking at all of my metrics, super excited for this meeting. Back then, our reports were based on, I'm printing out on the high, the thick glossy paper. I've got an 18-page report printed out, stapled, sitting there neatly on the table for him to come in. I greet him. We go back into the conference room. I work through all of these pages of wonderful metrics of where he's ranked in the top 5 in Google across all the keywords that mattered, where he's getting traffic to his site, and he's getting the conversions. So people filling out the lead form, and he had about 20 of them in that first quarter. I was super excited because it all came together just as I'd been trained in that first 3 or 4 months. We walk through it. It's a 20-minute conversation, or monologue. We work through it. We get to the end of it, and he's quiet, and he's sitting there, and he slides the report back across the table, and he's like, Corey, this is great. I see all the green and all the up and to the right. And I can validate that my team got all these phone calls or were able to connect with all these web submissions. But I didn't get a single new case from any of that effort and all the work that you put into it and all the dollars I put into investing in you and your firm. And that was a stomach drop moment that I will never forget. I mention that as a great success, and that might feel ironic because I didn't realize that success until later in my career as we get closer to modern day. And so what I had the opportunity to do was go through a revamped process with him, go sit in his office, understand how his business works, and how to map KPIs from my side of the table to business outcomes on his side of the table. That might seem like a basic lesson, and with the esteemed colleagues in this room, you're probably laughing, thinking, well, maybe I've been there, maybe you felt that stomach drop moment before in a meeting where you had it not go as you wanted. I've also had the pleasure of being fired later in my career from client accounts or contracts canceled when all the metrics look great. And I've even been told that these are the right metrics and these are leading to success. And so what I've been on a mission for the past few years is to not get fired and not just leave it to chance that ROI is connected to those marketing metrics that even somebody on the marketing team, my counterpart on the other side of the table, says this is what matters for our business. So that led to the establishment of my 5-step START planning process. It's an acronym that I'll unpack in a moment. So again, you're getting fired, we're not saving babies with marketing. My wife is in research, trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's. I put what she does way more important than what I do. But at the same time, I've learned to recognize the impact of whether it's my team, my employees who have to go when we lose contracts, but more importantly, on the client side, when clients and brands can't achieve their mission, vision, and values and make the impact that they want to make on the world. So that's how I've had to learn to take care with every client relationship and all the work that we do to really take this from being a more transactional business model that so many, no offense with agencies in the room, but so many agencies and practitioners take, or we don't want to get into the mess of having to deal with internal company politics or siloed businesses or going in and being more like a business consultant than somebody who's deep in the weeds with SEO or paid search who isn't comfortable getting out from behind those KPIs or metrics that are standard in the industry. So let me unpack the START planning process. It's an acronym. So follow me through it. So it initially starts with strategy. And that's the no-brainer one. It should start with strategy. And everything else in the process should be guided by looking back through the lens of what the strategy is. So in strategy, we go through what we call a step called profile, where we're looking at what you have and getting people aligned on the same page and on the same page with the language we're using in terms of an industry. In so many industries, there's inside baseball terminology that gets used and implemented, but I can sit around a table with people who have been in a company for 20 years in different functions who are using the same words in much different ways with much different definitions. So getting us all on the same page there is important. Then there's auditing, there's research, whether that's market research or doing third-party research on existing entities like audience, customer base, and getting into things that relate to brand or product strategy or whatnot as well. Again, in this case, we're not necessarily engaging on a full research study, but this is to understand and get out of our own way of our own data or what we've taken for granted being accurate in almost the tribal knowledge internally. And then we get into goal setting, and this is probably the most important part. This is where we have to get a goal that's a paragraph, not a run-on sentence paragraph, but a paragraph of who we're serving, what we're offering as our value proposition, and how we quantify that with a business outcome that then we can work backwards to map our KPIs to, our marketing KPIs. When we're all on the same page, then we move into tactics. So many times tactics are put ahead of strategy or considered as strategy. I'm all about processes. I love checklists. But running an SEO checklist or doing SEO best practices or having a content calendar that you're leveraging and you're posting 7 times a day and you're blogging 3 times a month, that's not a strategy. And in many cases, those are inherited things that we've just always done that get carried forward, not connected to ultimate business outcomes. Those probably are going to be happening anyway, but let's get them connected to what you need to be doing and with conviction for why we're doing it. So we don't get a year in and we're like, okay, what did we get for that? Now we're just really grasping for what we can connect there. So this is the phase where it's cheap to test things out. I haven't been shut down by Google yet or kicked out of the Google Partner Program for saying Google will take your money whether your ads are working or not. But that's the truth. And in fact, Google's incentivized to get you to spend more. Their reps are trying to spend more. Their automated suggestions that get implemented if you don't do anything about it or stop them will make you spend more, whether it's working or not. So understanding that, getting into tactics and testing in this phase and using some of the beautiful research tools we have out there that give us a lot of data back, we can save 6 months of just throw it out there and spend to find out. And so we don't have to guess as much. Yes, there's optimization. Yes, there are processes for learning as we go, but we don't have to be guessing or investing or spending versus investing. And so as we test out and nail down what our set of tactics are, then we can move into the A and start, and that's the application phase. That's looking at the assets and what our house is, or if our house is in order or not digitally. Is our website ready to invite people to a new party that we want to host? Do we have a content strategy, and do we have the resources in place to develop it? Do we have the assets we need if we're going to launch new types of ads on LinkedIn or Facebook or even Google Ads again? And so getting that mapped out, not actually doing any design work or asset creation here, but understanding what you need so you don't get to the end of building this amazing plan and then realize you need 6 months to go build all the things to be able to implement it. Then we move into review. This is not called reporting on purpose. A lot of people will guess that, but it's review because this is bigger than just turning on a dashboard or taking a reporting platform out of the box. This is setting up your mechanism for understanding ROI all the way through. And so software is blind to know what it even costs. And in many organizations, we don't factor in what an agency might cost, what outside resources cost, or even the internal talent costs and how that factors into ROI. Not every organization is that transparent to share that or put that in reporting that they share with the entire team. But those that get it and can prove to a CFO or someone in the C-suite that this is an investment with an expectation of return on investment and not an expensive line item or expense in how we look at marketing, those are the organizations that are able to get to that point. And so getting that process set up is important at this phase. And then the final phase is transformation. This is where the entire plan comes together. Whether your plan looks like a nice, neat outline that you can print out on paper, whether it's a deck that has a ton of links to appendices, this is where you have a realistic schedule of what you can implement. And I never want anyone to feel like they're just gonna go run this plan and in 6 months or 12 months come back and it magically worked. This is where you also have to build in testing time and some agility into it as well to be able to optimize, to be able to revisit what's happening. And this, I got almost to the end here before I mentioned the 2 letters, AI. This is where we can account for emerging technologies and things that are disrupting our world. I go week to week now, reevaluating where my audience is and where they are. It's not enough to just have personas and know who your audience is, or to traditionally think, well, they're all just gonna be in Google. They're shifting, and it's shifting rapidly, and understanding where they are allows us to make our own choices on the investment of being somewhere in first mover advantage, or whether we wanna ride it out for a little while longer with what's working now, with our eye on the future and how much we're testing and adjusting from there. But getting the plan into an actionable, custom method that you can implement, and when things get busy, it doesn't just get put on the shelf. You don't get distracted from implementing it. Things happen in the marketplace that take you off track. CEO gives a drive-by and says, why don't we test this? That's your chance with a documented plan to say, time out. Let's take 5 minutes and talk about this. Does this shift priorities in the plan? Does this take budget from something else in the plan? It's a plan that's documented, and it's not personal. It's not in someone's head. It's not something that someone leaves the company and now we've got to start over from scratch. But it's a plan that you can enact with all of the corrective points in there and enough agility built in to be able to adjust over time. So again, like I said, we're not saving the world necessarily in marketing. In some organizations, you might be. I have some healthcare clients who are doing some amazing things. But in a lot of cases, in a lot of the boring industries I serve, have very necessary impacts on local and global economies. Having a plan is something that can keep everyone anchored. And so as I encourage you to work through that 5-step start planning process to arrive at your own digital marketing success plan, I just want to remind you that without a plan, you're just spending money.